Hi, Dorian.
Hello.
Hi, just to check if we have everyone here.
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
We will start in 10 minutes, more or less, a little bit maybe later, because we went late with the previous session.
Okay, no problem.
But there is no problem. We still have 20 minutes for each person in case we finish a little bit later at the end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. I think that we can start with the third session of the Valcamonica Symposium. We have now a session about new research and news in world rock art, Egypt, North Africa, and Near East, where the chairperson are me, Paolo Medici, and with us there is also Dario Sigari that is connected online.
Yes, I'm here.
Ciao, Dario.
Ciao.
Okay, I think that we can start with the first presentation that we have in program. That is Frederick Hartke. I'm not sure that is the right pronunciation.
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay, and he will speak about Utrecht, the Belgian Australian mission at El Hosh, Egypt. Thank you, Frederick, for the presentation, and you can start whenever you want.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Is that clear? Yep.
Okay, we see perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome to this talk on the Belgian Australian mission to El Hosh in Egypt, a site in Upper Egypt. So I'll be talking a little bit about the project, an overview of El Hosh itself, an overview of the corpus that's been known about before, and we've uncovered new material there as well, and some preliminary results of a field season we conducted there in 2019. That's just some of the team there. So the project itself, it's a Macquarie University, Australia collaboration with the Brussels Museum of Art and History. It's covered by a Macquarie University research seeding grant, which is greatly appreciated. The aim is really the survey and analysis of the rock art in the area of El Hosh in Upper Egypt, with a specific focus on rock art, which is presumably pre-dynastic or early dynastic material. The reason for that being that a number of researchers have been in the area before us, some of them only spending a short amount of time and only really doing a bit of a sample of some of the rock art there, and the Belgian mission that preceded us focused primarily on the Paleolithic and Epipaleolithic material, which left a lot of the pre-dynastic and later material still to be researched. And we also incorporate legacy data for the disturbed sites. So there's some parts of El Hosh which are disturbed through quarrying and other activities, and there is material available in archives from previous researchers that we can integrate into our work. So as I say, we first commenced in November 2019, and it's meant to be an ongoing project. And it continues on from the work by Frobenius, Winkler, and the Belgian mission. So in terms of the location, here we are in Egypt. Everyone recognizes it. It's Cairo up here, and we're down here in Upper Egypt, just a bit north of Aswan. Actually, the closest city is Edfu. So if we blow this up and move over to this side, at the moment, there are 4 primary sub-sites, Jebel Yusuf, Abu Tankura Kibli, Kibli, and Curliam Rock down here is a new name that we've applied to one of the sub-sites down here. So a little bit about the legacy data. So in the 1920s, 1926, there was an expedition by the Frobenius mission. Now, Leo Frobenius conducted from the late 19th century, I believe up until at least the 60s or 70s, as an ongoing thing by the Frobenius Institute. Even after Leo Frobenius passed away, there was an initiative to go around the world, to different parts of the world, Asia, Africa, other parts of Europe, to record what still was extant of ancient cultures. And they did this through anthropology, and they also had a strong interest in rock art. So as a part of that, one of their trips took them to Egypt. in 1926. They also did one in the early 1930s. The 1926 mission reached El Hosh, and they recorded, they only spent a short time there, but they took field notes, sketches and photos, which are very valuable, not only in terms of having recorded material that was later potentially disturbed, but also showed the sorts of things that researchers focused on in those times, which is sometimes a little different to now. And the archive itself, held at the Frobenius Institute at the University of Frankfurt. Many Egyptologists who have an interest in rock art know about Hans Winkler. He arrived in Egypt in the late 30s. He was also an anthropologist who actually started out by researching some of the earlier cult beliefs in the people who were, you know, the Upper Egyptian people who were obviously Islamic, but they were still practicing some other sorts of rituals and practices from early times. While he was there, he became aware of the rock art, so he decided to focus on that, which was great because he was able to cover a wide part of Egypt. And he also made it to El Hosh. There's a map down the bottom here, which was shaded. This is actually one of his that he shaded in to show where he got to in which part of Egypt. We can see he was in the Edfu El Hosh region in 1937 and 1938. There are also field notes, sketches, photos, maps. The field notes are in an interesting script called Kurent, which is something which a lot of people might not be able to read. It's a script that was used around, you know, from the turn of last century, quite commonly up until the 30s, after which Suterling became more popular. So there were different kinds of scripts in use in Germany at the time. The interesting point being that if you picked up his field notes, and even if you could read German, you'd have a very hard time in understanding what he wrote. In any case, it's very interesting because he keeps notes, field notes that he writes in front of the rock art, and in some cases it's a little different to what ended up in his published works. But the main purpose for us to have an interest in this is really, you know, there are many photos that he took. The archive itself encompasses probably 80% of everything he photographed, whilst the published is about maybe 20%. And there is much there to learn. So in terms of the corpus itself, from the Paleolithic, there's some bovids, not as extensive as another site across the Nile called Kuruta, where we have also got Paleolithic material in Egypt, but yeah, some examples there. Some Epi-Paleolithic, and we can see here some examples of the famous fish traps from El Hosh. They're referred to as fish traps. They're an abstract design. Pre-dynastic material, dynastic, Hellenic, all the way up to Arabic, so something for everyone. Just a quick overview of the typology and what we have here, and I've referred to that as overall as natural rock art interaction, because we not only have figurative motifs, but also markings, modifications, and epigraphics. So if I break that up into motifs, markings, modifications, epigraphics, motifs, by far the most common are the animals, followed closely by boats. The animals, for those of you who aren't familiar with Egyptian rock art, follows very much sort of African fauna. So we'll find Gerenuk, feline, elephant, giraffe. Asses are very common, especially in the pre-dynastic repertoire, as well as ibex. Barbary sheep, dogs, especially in hunting scenes, as the hunter. Horses in later periods, camels. We have an example of what we believe is a chameleon, which I'll show you in a moment. Bovids, hardy beasts, ostriches, hippos, and a rhino, which is extremely rare. Boats, there's a number of variations, but some of the main ones are the basic sickle boat, which is also known mainly to the Egyptian researchers, that type of boat, incurved sickle boats, and these high prow boats, and I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. Abstract motifs such as the fish traps I showed you earlier, and sometimes marking and modification. I find unfortunately that this type of thing gets less attention from rock art researchers, and there's potential evidence there for interaction with the rock art. Not just at El Hosh, but at other sites I've worked in Egypt, you often find that there's some sort of peck mark, rubbing, other marks around, which are not just random, they sometimes follow a pattern. Deep pits in a rock, sometimes as well, but possibly for more functional purposes. And again, the epigraphics. In the chronology, as I said, Paleolithic, Epipaleolithic, so 8,500 to 6,500 BC, the pre-dynastic, early dynastic, and that's really the focus area for our mission. And in terms of the chronology, the dating and how that's been done, so there's been at the site of Korta, which I mentioned earlier, that they used OSL there. Some carbon-14 was used at El Hosh in the early 2000s on the fish traps. And the other material is based mainly on stylistic comparison, and in Egypt we often do stylistic comparison with other forms of material culture, such as decorations on ceramics, palettes, combs, various items, physical items that have decoration which may be compared to the rock art itself. So just to give you a bit of a flavor, I'm just going to just swap applications here. Just 1 minute. So here's a 360 tour that we've done of this side of Jebel Yusuf. So it's a hill, as you can see, on a plain.
Sorry, the sharing is stopped. Probably you stopped the sharing of the video.
Oops, sorry.
No problem.
Well, I just have to share that, I think, right? Share.
Okay, now it's still up.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is a tour, a 360 tour model that we built up from the Jebel Yusuf hill, which has quite a bit of rock art on it, and that's the hill itself. And as we walk up, and it's a nice example of some of the typical rock art around El Hosh in one sort of locality. And as we move up the hill, we get to a boulder up here. And there you'll see some of these fish traps and some pre-dynastic gazelle and dogs and various animals up here. There's also crocodiles. You can barely see one over here, and you'll see hippos and that sort of thing. Typical themes and motifs in pre-dynastic rock art. The interesting thing here is that you can clearly see the level of patination difference between the pre-dynastic material and the older Epipaleolithic motifs down on the lower half here. And then we move. Oh, I've got a bit of a just a laid flat of that panel, and there's a de-stretch image. And as we move up to the top here, there's some more there, some giraffes, sort of very common as well. As we move over here, sorry, I hope I'm not making you seasick. Again, laid flat, many giraffes, hunting scenes, this sort of thing, very common. And we'll just go down here. There's another boulder. That one has the asses, which are, again, a common theme, very recognizably pre-dynastic for Egypt. So there's just a quick overview, a tour of a typical site that has most of the themes incorporated, and I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Right, now the first site here is ATQ. Quite a broad span of periods represented here. From a little later, there's an animal-headed boat, and I've got next to that a sketch done by the Frobenius people, and you can see here that it's interesting the detail that they've shown here. They've just sort of obliterated this over here on their sketch, and we can see that that's been hacked out. We notice in Egypt often that anthropomorphic motifs are attacked. This is the chameleon I referred to earlier, although we're pretty certain it's chameleon. It's the best guess that we can make of this particular creature. Very, very unusual in world rock art, chameleons, let alone Egyptian. I don't believe there's any other example in Egyptian rock art. There are some examples of chameleons in later dynastic graphic imagery, but yeah, highly interesting creature. So actually, next to it, a couple of other creatures which perplexed us. So we're still looking into this and trying to get to the bottom of it. We believe it's chameleon. Some of the vulnerability I referred to earlier, that here's a photo of this hardy beast, an elephant, and anthropomorphs from the 30s, and that's what that looks like today. So unfortunately, that's happened, but at least from the Winkler photo, we can see that there was, yes, indeed, once there was an elephant there, and these guys here. ATQQ, just going further south, it's actually a small, compact sub-site with a rock wall that goes north-south. You can see the rock wall there. There's some examples there also of some of the rock art where, again, I'm showing you some things that have been disturbed. Most of the rock art is intact, but there are some lovely examples which have been interfered with. And here you see this giraffe, and this is what Winkler took in 1937. And you can see that this spiral here, this trap or whatever that might be, is gone now, but it gives us the opportunity to reconstruct what was there. And the asses, as you saw earlier as well at the other sub-site. Boats, so we have these high-prowed boats, often towed. These are tow ropes, and there's many examples of this across Egypt, and in some instances you actually see there's anthropomorphs there pulling the rope, and they usually have cabins, twin cabins, and as shown here, there's another boat. There's a little anthropomorph on there, similar style, this high-prowed style. And again, this sort of towing arrangement going on here with these little strokes, possibly representing the people towing the boat. And then there's this site we call Curly Arm Rock, and you'll see in a minute why we call it that. So that's the furthest south. It's a long expanse of rock. So there's a front section, and then there's a hinterland which has rock art around it. So there's rock art from the left, from the south all the way to the north, across all of these faces and into crevices. And as you go around the back, there's more. Some interesting details here. Obviously, you know, giraffes are a common theme. But what we've found is that there are some local stylistic variations, which indicate that some of these are probably executed by the same hand, and by the same hand at not just one sub-site, but at different sub-sites. So the 360 virtual tour that I showed you earlier, you might remember this giraffe came up there. So that's a couple of kilometers to the north. And you can see, for example, this detail here of a tail, where it sort of comes up and down. And then that particular feature has been repeated here as well. And the length of the tail going all the way down to the feet. So there's some stylistic detail here which has been repeated across the site, but it's not necessarily the case across Egypt. This is not a common way of depicting a giraffe, but it is at the site. So we can see some evidence, like I say, of people either influencing each other directly or possibly execution by the same hand. A similar thing here. Just remember this giraffe. I'll show you another picture in a moment. So there's a larger giraffe, and then this smaller, possibly the progeny of the adult, the child of the adult. And the smaller one is actually rearing up. You can see looks like it's standing on its rear legs, and the front legs are sort of sticking out in the air like this, and then accompanied by the larger giraffe, and these two giraffes facing each other. So just down the hill a little bit from what I just showed you on the main rock face that I pointed out earlier, here we've got again this large giraffe, another giraffe facing it, and this little one here rearing up in this sort of rampant position with the front legs facing forward, which again is quite an unusual style of depiction of the giraffe. It seems to be shown in a number of instances at El Hosh. This is quite an interesting panel. It has a number of presumably pre-dynastic depictions on there. You have boats, there's giraffes, various animals. Some of the animals indeed look like combs that were produced in the pre-dynastic period. Very straight legs, almost like teeth of the comb. You might be able to make out that there's some figures over here that have their hands joined and they have curly arms, hence the name of the site. And the Frobenius mission saw these as well, and they sketched them like this. In fact, you might notice there that they've got boat marked here, right? And there's the boat over there, which is actually quite nice to bring that together. A nicer view, of course, is when we apply D-stretch of that same panel. This particular example, what we've done is to capture that particular panel all the way around. Now, I didn't bring the 3D model to show you to spin it around. But here's a capture out of that 3D model. So it's a 3D model, and we applied D-stretch to the individual photogrammetric images that we brought together, which is quite nice. And it shows that we can apply D-stretch to petroglyphs quite successfully, not just a painted rock art. And in here you can see there's a very unusual depiction of a crocodile taken from the side, to the point where you can see his jaws and some of the details of the scales on his back to his tail. And these figures with their arms joined and these curly things on the ends of their arms. There is some possible linkage there with dancing figures that we find on other material culture from the pre-dynastic on the various decorated wares. So there might be a linkage with that these, and they hold hands as well. We're not sure. We're still looking into that. And that's it. So I'd like to acknowledge Macquarie University, the Belgian mission, the Belgian Museum, and the Egyptian Ministry of State Antiquities to assist us in this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Being that I know that it's quite late there in Australia, I think that if there is some fast question, we can do it now, so we can after free you to go to bed.
Sure.
There are questions on the ground or in online. Otherwise, I have a couple of questions. In the last panel that you showed, where is the plastic panel, I saw there is some holes in the rock. Was natural ore holes, or was something used for a structure, maybe like a roof or something like that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That's a really excellent question, because those holes that you see in the vertical surface are natural. However, at the top of those, at the top of the rock wall, there are a number of deep pits, and they're quite deep. They're, some of them are maybe I don't know, a meter, just over a meter deep, and they're very smooth, and they're man-made, definitely, and we don't know why they were done. You get these. It's not unusual. Well, it is unusual, but you do see them in other places. You see them in the Eastern Desert as well. In the Eastern Desert, sometimes they seem to sit at places where there was water runoff, maybe to catch water. But these particular pits, they don't seem to be catching water runoff. They're just in the middle of nowhere. But maybe they were used for storing grain over the seasons, or we're not sure. But so I guess to answer the question, those holes in the vertical face were natural, but there are holes, very big holes at the top, which were definitely man-made. And there are also artifacts laying around. There's ceramic sherds and stone tools and small rock structures. So there was some sort of activity in that area that was possibly related to the rock art.
Okay, thank you. Because it was the idea was that could be some sort of structure to do the engravings or something in that. Maybe they placed something in wood to create the uppers from the engravings.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. No, just one very brief question, because you showed the chronological table explaining that the fish traps belong to the Epi-Paleolithic phase, and you say that those were dated by using C14, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But,
yeah. So they so they actually examined the patina, and they found some carbon in that patina, and they dated that carbon.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's an unusual technique for rock art, but yeah, that's what they did.
No, because I remember about the OSL dating series made on the patina, but for the most ancient phases, if I'm not wrong, the one that were published by Dirk Week.
Yeah, Dirk Week.
But they were done by using OSL, right?
Yeah, the OSL was applied to. So some of the rock art at Korta actually went under the sand, and they're able to find some material that was resting against some rock art, and they were dating that material to show that material, that the rock art is definitely older than that material. Yeah, so that's
and Epi-Paleolithic is more or less the same as the Mesolithic phase in Europe.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. And with the Paleolithic, there has been no direct dating done to the Paleolithic material at El Hosh. That's simply a stylistic comparison, and the fact that it's just across the Nile, and these guys just had to swim across to make the rock art. So it's
great. Thank you.
Okay, just one fast question. The remotion, when you say the vulnerability of rock art, where the elephant and the humans was cut away or just damaged.
Yes.
Was it intentional or is something natural damage?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Right, so with that one that I showed, where the elephant disappeared, it shows potentially two sides of the locals and how they see these things. Now, it's not obvious from the picture, but very close to where that remaining rock art is, there's a large pit where they have been doing quarrying. A lot of the locals, they use this sort of stone that rock art was executed on for their building. And this disturbed rock art is very close to a quarry. So it could be that was found, that was uncovered by the people doing the quarrying and set on the side. So it shows to me a level of care. That's on the positive side. On the negative side, we find quite consistently, and this might have something to do with religious belief, if there's any human or anthropomorph depicted, not always. In fact, in most of them are left alone, but it is quite common to see in a panel where there's anthropomorphs and animals and other things, that the anthropomorph is attacked and hacked out. And like I say, that might have to do with their religious convictions. I'm not sure, but there seems to be a targeting of human depictions, and that's why that particular one that had humans on there, off they go. So, but like I said, it's we are very fortunate, and I think in this time of COVID, a lot of us are going back into archives if we're not able to travel or do our field work or whatever, and it's a good time to actually catch up on the material that is available. And it is a good opportunity to go back and see what was done before, because especially in Egypt, not just for rock art, but for many other things, the legacy data of what people collected and recorded even 100 years ago, they recorded things which no longer exist. So we know that there's an exponential level of destruction going on of monuments, or has gone on over the period where, you know, things have stood for, you know, 3,000-4,000 years. And then in the early 20th century, all of a sudden things started to crumble, disappear. You know, the sheikh took the rocks away for building their palace or whatever that might be. This legacy data is something that we can draw upon to see the picture of some of Egypt, you know, at the turn of last century, in the 20s and 30s, where there was still more to see, and build up the picture from there. So that, and the same applies to the rock art, of course.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good questions.
If there are no further questions, we can let you go.
Thank you. Good night.
You to stay until now with us.
Well, I'll see you tomorrow anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Okay, so now we can go to the next presentation, that is Dorian. And he will speak about new perspective on pre-dynastic and early dynastic rock art in Egypt.
Yes. So,
oh, perfect.
Is it okay? Could you see it?
Yeah, I see it. Try
Okay.
to move it in order to be sure that it's going.
Perfect. So,
we are still on the first slide, is right?
yeah, we are on the first one. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, even if only virtually. And I would like to thank the organizing committee for allowing me to introduce some aspects of my ongoing research dedicated to Nilotic rock art. Rock art studies focusing on the production scattered in the Egyptian and Nubian Nile Valley and their neighboring deserts are experimenting for a few years now an obvious renewal of interest. Rock art is more and more appreciated and as an archaeological source in its own right in Egyptological works. This is obviously a good thing, but it seems that a whole new dynamic should still be set in motion to enlarge the scope of our current research perspectives. First, I would like to quickly recall the historical phases of development of rock art studies in Egypt and Nubia, and then I would like to introduce the contextual polysemy that can be witnessed in Nilotic rock art and stress the possibility that pre-dynastic productions could inform about the various communities that cohabited and how regularly met in both the deserts and the valley at that time. So in a span of almost a century, four main phases can be highlighted. One of exploration, documentation, and salvaging, clearly dominated by the pioneering works of Hans Winkler on the one hand, and those conducted in Lower Nubia in prevision of the flooding of the region by the water of the Lac Nasser on the other hand. This second phase was a phase of consolidation of the gathered knowledge, a phase notably characterized by the works of Pavel Jarvicek and more recently with the publications of Lenka Sukova. Then we have a shorter but crucial phase of rediscovery of the Eastern Desert material. These main publications, in fact, descriptive catalogs which are overshadowing punctual works published throughout the 20th century, led to the development of a new stage in rock art research, which reconnects Nilotic rock art with its wider North African context and laid the basis of current interpretative approaches, especially thanks to the fundamental work of Dirk Kuyk. This fourth phase is still ongoing. And these recent studies took advantage of the progress made in the understanding of pre-dynastic iconography in Upper Egypt, mainly thanks to the works of Stan Hendricks, which are notably inspired by the structuralist approach of the Brussels School and the concept of the primacy of order over chaos introduced into Egyptological discussions by Henry Frankfurt and Eric Ornung in the 1940s and 50s. In parallel, new archaeological investigations dedicated to rock art were organized, and they led to the development of improved recording techniques. Among the leading projects are those conducted by John Darnell, who worked in the Theban Desert hinterland before focusing on El Kab and its hinterland, and by Maria Gatto and Antonio Cocci in the region of Aswan and its desert vicinity. The works of Walter Klaas and Fred Arke at Elosh, those of Fred Arke at Yarakonpolis, of Maria Nilsson at Gebel El Silsile and in the Wadi Shat El Rigal, and of Gwenola Graf in a section of the Wadi Abu Subayra need, of course, to be mentioned too. And also the works of Salim Ikram and Pavel Polkovsky in the oasis of the Western Desert are equally important, but as far as this area is concerned, pre-dynastic productions are less numerous and offer stylistic and typological peculiarities when compared with what the Valley and the Eastern Desert have offered. And this divergence must be better acknowledged and studied, but this is another topic. So all these missions are encompassing the territory of Upper Egypt, the core area of the Naqadan culture, which was the dominant archaeological assemblage in the region during the 4th millennium BC, so during the pre-dynastic and the early dynastic period. Indeed, no rock art has been documented in Middle Egypt. Middle Egypt is known for being extremely poor in archaeological traces related to Neolithic times. So this map broadly shows the rock art landscape as it is currently known, with the many sites in the Eastern Desert that were extensively documented in the past, and the main concentrations in key areas of the Upper Egyptian Nile Valley currently being prospected. These are strategic places indeed, since all these highlighted zones on the map and their desert hinterlands were all gates giving access to main roads crossing the deserts and connecting the valley with foreign lands, and especially with Nubia. So, despite all of this, our knowledge of the rock art scattered in the Nile Valley is still very much incomplete, and in parallel with the numerous discoveries made in the past few years and currently in the process of being published, many questions remain unaddressed. Indeed, focusing only on productions that can easily be attributed to the Nagadans, so on productions that can be comfortably discussed and interpreted with a relative degree of confidence, gives an incomplete image of the data available. It's the tree that hides the forest, in fact, the forest being thousands of productions that remains problematic for various reasons. Rock art should be replaced in its original geographical and cultural context, that is to say, in a highly intercultural territory without borders during most of the 4th millennium. Egyptian rock art has been described as the expression of religious, cosmological, ideological, or else funerary considerations. Not exclusive to each other, none of these managed to satisfactorily explain all the available data. 20 years later, Dirkhuig's statement is all the more true that figures with raised arms and feathers headdresses are not considered to be gods anymore, but rather depictions of Nagadan elites. Cultic deposits and temples are not archaeologically attested before the early dynastic period, and only communal, ceremonial, and ritual activities can be inferred from pre-dynastic archaeological material. Eastern desert productions, which combine boats with desert and Nilotic fauna, but also male figures often armed with bows, display an iconography reminiscent of what the Nagadan material has offered. Based on this observation, recent contributions notably focused on the way the authors of these productions conceived and used their environment through rock art. Among the most convincing and enduring results of the past 20 years is the hypothesis that most of rock images dispersed in the deserts testify to the desire of Upper Egyptian populations to Niloticize these barren territories, to control the natural chaos that permanently lies there. The superpositions of petroglyphs also suggest that many of these engraved spaces were, let's say, reactivated and updated during generations following a process of iconographic attraction. The boat was an important symbol inside Naqadan iconographic repertoire, expressing fundamental concepts such as order, control, and social cohesion. It was used in activities involving processional heavens of political and ritual nature. Because of its ubiquity and complex but nevertheless functional typology, the boat is also also a wonderful item when it comes to attribute a panel to a specific period, and it could even inform on regional iconographic peculiarities. The boat in Nilotic rock art is then another argument supporting the idea that this iconography conveys ideological considerations linked with the exaltation of the elite's wealth and power, and with the concept of the primacy of a cosmic order over a permanent chaos. Rock art would convey similar, if not identical, concepts through the depictions of hunting scenes, boats, and arms raised figures. This approach also led to other tentative suggestions, such as the hypothetical association of rock art with the accomplishment of rites of passage by these elites. All in all, this work brings a convincing explanation for a certain amount of rock panels, especially those dating from the final pre-dynastic and proto-dynastic periods, that is to say, when the first kings made their appearance in Upper Egypt, when the territory of what is now Egypt was in the process of being culturally unified, and when Upper Egyptian society was progressively, politically and economically structured. However, the majority of rock art productions, most of which is tentatively attributed to the early pre-dynastic periods, remains difficult to grasp for various reasons, and thus rarely appear outside of the catalogs into which they have been published several decades ago. The engravings currently being discovered, like this panel, still partially covered by sand in Aswan, are far less easy to analyze and to publish, and this leaves us with an incomplete image of what really exists. And I would like to suggest that this difficulty could be partly overcome if we remember that the Nagadans were not the only ones that have drawn on rock, and that the means and goals regarding rock art practice diverged depending on geographical and socio-political context. It is necessary to take into consideration the intercultural nature of Upper Egypt and Lower Nubia during most of the 4th millennium BC, and a contextual polysemy of rock art. One might say that there is no one rock art, but several, depending on when and where it has been made and by whom. This might seem obvious, but it's quite difficult to address this aspect, even in Egypt, where rock art studies are backed up by lots of archaeological sources. Available data testify to the divergence, both in nature and composition, between the rock art scattered in the Nile Valley understood as the region comprising the riverbanks and the desert hinterlands, and the deep desert, subjectively understood as the area beyond a few hours' walk from the Nile Valley, and from where returning to the valley is not possible on the same day. So it's two different worlds. They complete each other, but they are really different contexts. Although this will progressively change thanks to the ongoing works mentioned before, Nile Valley rock art remains quite poorly apprehended. Most of what is available lies in decades-old catalogs and can hardly be used for comparative analysis. Although these catalogs only offer a selection of isolated engravings, it nevertheless seems that complex compositions in the valley cannot be equated to those of the Eastern Desert. Indeed, panels saturated with boats, members of the elite, and lassoed animals like those of the Eastern Desert are not attested as such in the valley proper. Among lots of isolated engravings, Nile Valley rock art offers some formal productions commissioned by local authorities. The composition discovered in Nag el Hamdulab near Aswan is a perfect example of such official productions, which do not appear in the desert. The one recently discovered near El Kab is another example, which offers several phases of engravings that can be followed from the top left to the lower right, so from a late pre-dynastic fleet up to a first dynasty Serer, the Serer consisting in the name of a king inscribed inside a palace facade. Based on stylistic and technical observations, it can even be suggested that engravings in the Eastern Desert progressively diminish during the early dynastic period and give way to strategically located productions progressively restricted to the Nile Valley and its hinterland. Early dynastic rock art is relatively rare in the Eastern Desert and mainly consists of some boats and rare serer. Rock art became a political tool, in fact, at the margin of the formation of the state in Egypt. A possible liminal nature has been postulated also for some specific localities associated with regular human activities, such as hunting grounds or ceremonial spaces. For example, these still unpublished compositions, panels, recently discovered in the direct vicinity of El Cab and showing a flotilla of numerous pre-dynastic ceremonial barks on a rock that was in fact lapped, if not occasionally covered by the Nile during the flood. So these boats may have appeared to sail out on water during the flood. This manner of playing with the elements of the landscape and the link between actual ceremonies and festival that was performed back then is not attested in the desert either, at least not at this level, at this stage. These productions are linked with the ideological, political, and religious development of the region in the second half of the 4th millennium and are concentrated in strategic areas. In this context, rock art was a very practical action, social action, and not random magical drawings, I would say. Perhaps Eastern Dizon rock art should even be associated with pre-dynastic expeditions and for economic purposes during all, or at least most of the 4th millennium. These images probably quite prosaically ensured the appropriation of punctually important areas of the desert and perhaps also played an apotroparic role by extending the concept of order and control into hostile areas. However, one could not leave aside too easily the possibility that non-Nagadan people engraved desert rock surfaces. Among other groups erased from history were nomad pastoral foragers attested in the eastern desert of Egypt and Nubia from at least the 6th millennium BC. The hypothesis that such groups practiced rock art alongside the Nagadans cannot be easily verified, since such production would offer anyway the classic Neolithic combination of human and animal figurations. But potentially, a way to distinguish nomad productions from Nagadan ones would be to reassess compositions generally considered to depict symbolic hunting activities. Because the bow does not necessarily make the hunter, but could simply be an integral part of men paraphernalia, some specific scenes could relate to the daily pastoral life of nomadic communities, many of them coming from Nubia. Arguably, these groups were in regular contact with the Nagadans and have been progressively impregnated with ideological concepts resulting from the social structuration at play in Upper Egypt at that time. The codified Nagadan iconography and the concepts it conveyed spread along exchange networks in Egypt and Nubia, and it is likely that it influenced the artistic practices of other communities to an extent that cannot yet be determined. One might even suggest that the Nagadans developed an iconographic syntax. It has been postulated by others before, and this iconographic syntax was extensively used and largely understood in both Egypt and Nubia. Although the kinship between the engravings distributed in Lower Nubia and those of Upper Egypt has long been acknowledged, their true relations have never been properly addressed. It is generally assumed that cattle depictions are reminiscent of the pastoral way of life of Neolithic Nubian populations, while boats images are rather testimonies of Nagadan influence beyond the First Cataract. However, the strict dichotomy between Egypt and Nubia during the 4th millennium BC is outdated. Deserts form broad communication routes crossed by mobile communities. This cultural diversity, which gradually diminished in the Nile Valley as the Nagadans spread throughout present-day Egypt, but also in the Levant and in Lower Nubia in the second half of the 4th millennium, is likely to have remained important in the deserts. Rock art certainly bears the testimony of such intercultural environment. This new understanding of human occupations in Upper Egypt and Lower Nubia during the 4th millennium BC invites us to reassess the rock art of this whole region outside of modern territorial conceptions and cultural categories. In this perspective, the Aswan area is a perfect laboratory, and especially since the discovery of a previously unknown and quite impressive decorated wadi in the eastern desert of Aswan, Wadi Rasras, where alongside many pre-dynastic productions are others which are reminiscent of Lower Nubian rock art, and especially this remarkable painted panel. All of these new data have the potential to inform us about intercultural contacts in the margin of the valley. At the end of the day, as written by Claire Smith and her colleagues about Australian rock art, to reduce rock art research to the study of meaning is to overlook information on past cultural developments, practices, and interactions that can be obtained through descriptive, quantitative, and archaeometric analysis. Thanks to a renewed dynamism in Egyptian rock art studies, it is now possible to go beyond mere descriptive and interpretative approaches and by raising new problematics. Rock art is an archaeological source which has the potential to bring crucial nuances to our current interpretative schemes and research paradigms. It is necessary to abandon both Egyptocentrist and Nubiocentrist approaches and rather adopt innovative interdisciplinary methods. A global and holistic approach of the rock art documented between the Kenna Band and the Second Cataract, coupled with a comparative analysis of the three main areas where rock art is distributed, that is to say the Nile Valley and the deserts, allows reassessing current knowledge and to work on a supra-regional scale. It is also time to consider Egyptian and Lower Nubian rock art as one social action performed by different though contemporaneous and untangled cultural traditions. Only then could we usefully address questions such as styles, functions, and meaning, and could we make the best of what rock art still has to offer. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorian. I think that we can now stop the sharing.
Yes.
Up on the screen.
Just go down with the.
Okay, no, I found it. Okay, sorry.
No problem at all. Now we have the recording of the speaking of Julie Villet, I think, that she has some problem with the presentation, so she sent it to us, and we can show it now.
Hello, thank you very much to the organizers of the symposium for allowing us to participate in this. I am going to present you the communication translated and what is said, defining power and leadership, or en French, graver les sévères, pratique de définition du pouvoir et de la royauté. I am of course available for any question. Nous nous plongeons dans la seconde moitié qui a été une étape égyptien qui offre de riches perspectives de recherche très souvent liées à l'image de royauté et à la formation monétaire de groupe de la politique. Tous ces phénomènes sociaux et politiques ne sont malheureusement que plus visibles ou explicités par l'archéologie. Et dans le cas de sociétés qui n'emploient pas l'écriture, à l'instar de la culture maghrébine qui nous intéresse ici, ils ne peuvent non plus être documentés par des sources textuelles. Il faut donc essayer de repérer des marqueurs matériels et iconographiques qui permettent de déceler les structures et les organisations politiques et sociales. Ici, c'est donc le CR qui se donne notre objet d'étude en tant que vraiment marqueur de pouvoir et élément qui figure le nom robuste, qui est le plus ancien élément de la culture royale égyptienne. Pour commencer, quelques petites remarques concernant la typologie des CR à la fin de la période dynastique.
Paolo, è saltato l'audio, c'è qualcosa che non va.
Du spectre morphologique canonique n'apparaît pas ex nihilo directement dès l'apparition de l'outil stellaire. Les premières appréciations du stellaire, tout début de Magellan 3, Magellan 3A, 3B, se divisent en trois types qui ont été distingués par Edwin Magellan, dont vous avez la référence. Donc ces trois types sont d'une part les stellaires pleins, jusque-là, qui consiste en un motif de façade de palais, tout simplement, c'est-à-dire un carré ou un rectangle devant une ligne verticale. Il y a également un deuxième type qui a été identifié, qui est le stellaire anonyme, avec toujours ces façades de palais, mais qui sont montées d'un compartiment, qui est les cellules. Et ensuite, les stellaires personnalisés, qui contiennent encore une fois cette façade de palais avec un compartiment, mais là, cette fois, dans le compartiment, il peut y avoir un nom qu'on peut voir sur la forme de phonogramme qui est inscrit. Il peut également avoir la présence d'un ou au-dessus de cette façade de palais, mais en présence de la stellaire. Dans aucune de ces catégories, il s'agit de stellaires pleins, anonymes ou personnalisés. L'évolution chronologique plus fine de ce motif est également assez délicate à établir, puisque de nombreuses occurrences ne peuvent pas être datées vraiment précisément. Et c'est notamment le cas pour les stellaires qui ne portent pas de nom, ou alors qui sont isolés sur des parois complexes. Je reprécise que le stellaire semble apparaître durant la période de Magellan 3B, voire 3A, 3A2 pour être précis. Et à ce moment-là, nous avons des stellaires pleins ou anonymes. Les occurrences de ces deux types se rencontrent jusqu'à la période de Magellan 3C1, à une époque où il existe déjà des stellaires personnalisés. Il ne faut donc pas imaginer une évolution chronologique du stellaire qui serait linéaire, alors d'un motif augmentant de chronicité, c'est-à-dire d'un stellaire plein vers un stellaire anonyme, puis un stellaire personnalisé, mais plutôt les types peuvent se rencontrer de manière parallèle à une époque dans différents éléments iconographiques. En ce qui concerne la date d'apparition de ces dates personnalisées, les types restent ouvertes. Il y a des incertitudes qui sont engendrées notamment par les difficultés de lecture de certains signes. L'opus K, vous avez un exemple de stellaire ici, qui est daté de l'extrême fin de Magellan 3, et le plus ancien roi enterré à Dios, dont l'attestation du nombre stellaire passe consensus. Il y a toutefois certains auteurs qui identifient des stellaires de rois plus anciens, comme le Cosmogonique, le Scorpion, l'Unicorne ou encore Théor, mais ces lectures et même l'existence de ces rois restent encore source de débat. Au temps des gravures, il y a un groupe assez important de stellaires. Il y en a une trentaine qui datent de la période de Magellan 3, en la fin de l'époque dynastique ainsi que des deux premières dynasties. Ces stellaires sont issus dans des zones difficiles réparties en protégées, qui est vraiment une puissance de la culture magallienne, mais également dans des zones en périphérie et traversées par des routes ou des expéditions. La morphologie de ces stellaires est assez variée. Ils peuvent être anonymes ou personnalisés, surmontés de faucons parfois alléchants et dotés de bras. Et ils peuvent également apparaître dans deux types de contextes, c'est-à-dire dans un contexte isolé, des stellaires qui ne sont pas intégrés dans une composition iconographique, ou bien dans justement des systèmes un peu plus complexes, dans des vraies compositions iconographiques. Dans cette première partie de notre stellaire, qui n'est pas inclus dans une scénographie ou dans une composition iconographique et qui sont vraiment isolés, il faut noter que ces motifs peuvent prendre place, que ce soit sur des rochers isolés ou encore des parois plus larges. Et on retrouve des stellaires de deux types ici, des stellaires anonymes ou encore des stellaires personnalisés. Vous avez un planning, évidemment, des différentes lectures qui peuvent être faites des stellaires isolés. En ce qui concerne les élèves intégrés dans une position iconographique, plein de formes peuvent être anonymes et personnalisées. Et là, on suit évidemment de la scène qui est représentée, une scène qui soit plus complexe ou plus grande, bien ces élèves prennent davantage place sur des murs assez larges. Et dans le cas de ces élèves qui ont une position iconographique, on peut le fonction avec soit des élèves qui sont animés et actifs en position de fixation de l'ennemi, soit des élèves qui sont représentés de manière passive, ici soit à l'intérieur d'une position qui soit navale ou incluant des individus à pied, mais également en tant qu'inscription. Donc là, dans ce cas, le élève n'est pas forcément un acteur, un élément participant à la scène, mais plutôt une notation, un nom qui accompagne la figure du roi, qui, elle, est représentée de façon anthropomorphe et porte l'action de la scène. Nous allons maintenant s'intéresser aux systèmes symboliques qui sont d'être variables, au sein desquels ces élèves peuvent être inclus. Qu'il s'agisse de celles composées ou bien de collectifs isolés, les valeurs qui figurent des élèves sont placées à des endroits stratégiques, soit en position transitoire au niveau du pouvoir terrestre, ou bien dans un but géographique, au carrefour géographique sur le trajet d'expédition, dans des zones assez stratégiques pour le pouvoir des émissaires. Le contexte est donc assez semblable dans les deux cas, mais la charge symbolique peut être différente selon le célèbre et la scène considérée. Le système, le processus de caractérisation du pouvoir, il s'agit de chef ou de pouvoir, semble être traversé par plusieurs systèmes symboliques qui peuvent se mêler au sein de l'iconographie féministe. Alors, tout d'abord, les célèbres semblent se trouver à la notion de charge symbolique avec d'une part l'identité d'avoir individualisé, personnalisé, et d'autre part un concept plus général de pouvoir et de royauté. Selon Hendrix, le développement du célèbre anonyme, celui, encore une fois, qui ne contient pas de nom à l'intérieur et qui est composé d'un rectangle ou d'un carré incluant des lignes verticales, donc ce célèbre anonyme se développe de manière indépendante de l'écriture du nouveau voyelle. Hendrix montre donc qu'il s'agit là de deux processus indépendants, avec le premier, le célèbre anonyme, qui s'intéresse le pouvoir, qui ensuite, par combinaison avec le voyelle, aurait formé le célèbre personnalisé. Et ce développement se réalisait pour la première fois sur le règne de cas, nous avons parlé précédemment. Ce qui signifie donc que les inscriptions contenues dans les célèbres qui précèdent ce règne ne signifieraient pas nécessairement un nom royal, mais seraient plutôt des marqueurs du pouvoir. Et de ce point de vue, il interprète les motifs carrés présents dans certains célèbres comme étant des éléments architecturaux, dont la fonction serait d'insister sur le fait que le célèbre, le motif du célèbre, est un édifice. Là, nous avons notamment l'exemple du tableau 2 du Wadi Caméra, avec juste ici, dans la barre, un célèbre, bien surmonté d'un côté, que l'on peut encore apercevoir. Et si on regarde bien dans l'extrémité supérieure du célèbre, on aperçoit un carré, qui semble être à la partie supérieure d'un carré, qui pourrait donc signifier cet édifice, cet élément redondant par rapport au célèbre qui lui-même serait un élément architectural. De même, nous avons ces deux célèbres qui proviennent des sites, du site 34 qui a été opéré en ce moment-là. Et il est assez intéressant de noter ici que ces deux célèbres sont inclus dans un rectangle. Alors, après, effectivement, la contemporanéité de ce rectangle, de cette enceinte elliptière qui à l'intérieur de notre base, pouvait pas être certaine, mais il serait assez intéressant de noter que ces éléments peuvent représenter une enceinte et donc constituer de nouveau une affirmation de la nature architecturale du célèbre, éventuellement encore royale du célèbre, une forme de symbolisme, ou encore agissant en tant que protecteur. Il est également intéressant de considérer le rectangle qui est ici placé dans une embarcation, toujours au Wadi Amera, mais cette fois-ci sur le plateau de point. Donc, effectivement, un rectangle sur un bateau surmonté d'un faucon, il pourrait s'agir d'un célèbre, du moins, il se trouve dans la même position que les célèbres sur les autres tableaux de ce site du Wadi Amera, mais son identification n'est pas certaine et également proposée d'idées géographiques anciennes, des hiéroglyphes ou encore plus. En tout cas, c'est le signe de P et le pouce, respectivement un carré et une enceinte, occupaient donc la même position que le rectangle des célèbres sur les autres tableaux, et donc cela permettait d'établir une petite correspondance entre ces motifs, avec de nouveau un accent porté sur l'aspect architectural et territorial du pouvoir, du concept du pouvoir de manière générale, et non sur le pouvoir éventuel. Puisque par la suite, donc, on avait suggéré nous aurions cette combinaison du célèbre anonyme et de l'écriture mémoriale, il serait donc possible d'assister au passage de la représentation de l'idée du pouvoir, éventuellement du pouvoir royal, et de ce qui implique symboliquement que physiquement et territorialement, un passage jusqu'à l'individualisation du roi. À noter toutefois que cette évolution ne semble pas soudaine et les exceptions peuvent se mêler, selon base de phénomènes de système symbolique assez perméables et qui s'entremêlent. Ainsi, le site du Golgiach met en parallèle un célèbre anonyme ainsi que le royal de l'empereur. Et d'après les techniques typologiques, les deux célèbres seraient bien contemporains. Donc, nous serions vraiment en présence de deux phénomènes qui s'entremêlent et qui sont parallèles. Autre chose, par rapport au nom, au célèbre contenant un nom qui représenterait donc un manuel de loi individualisé et agissant. Si on imagine que ce célèbre avait observé le passage de la représentation du pouvoir en tant qu'idée de son nom à la représentation de loi en tant qu'individu particulier et social, il faut aussi noter que ce phénomène trouve un écho dans d'autres matières photographiques. Là, si on regarde dans la période prédatoire à B, nous avons des exemples de symboles du pouvoir qui sont actifs et agissants au sein des propositions iconographiques. Et ce, notamment dans le cadre de cette supplétion de l'ennemi, comme par exemple ici, sur la palette autoroute, vous avez ces enseignes qui sont des éléments parfois simplement constitués d'un mât, d'un bateau, avec un élément symbolique au-dessus. Ici, ils sont dotés de mains qui enserrent une corde qui probablement permet d'utiliser un prisonnier. Mais c'est également le cas pour les bateaux. Là, vous avez l'exemple d'un silhouette présentant des petits barques qui sont en train de bénéficier d'un hippopotame. Donc, domination de l'ennemi, domination de l'environnement également. Ces enseignes peuvent également être suivies de l'iconographie selon les stades dans lesquels elles apparaissent et les contextes dans lesquels elles sont mises en valeur. Si elles sont parfois représentées en agent constitutionnel ennemi, vraiment autonome et parfois donné de racisme prisonnier, ce n'est que dans un cadre de scène assez particulier qui précède l'apparition de la figure anthropomorphe de loi. Puisque à mesure que cette figure anthropomorphe apparaît dans la scène, là nous sommes environ à l'aube de la dynastie, cette dernière comprend les prérogatives des enseignes. Ainsi, ces enseignes perdent de l'autonomie et sont dorénavant portées par des individus intégrés à la chef royale, qui vraiment de pouvoir agissant tout seul. Elles ne sont effectivement pas l'idée de la puissance qui a besoin de caractériser le roi et entrer dans ses définitions, mais elles ne sont plus nécessaires pour exprimer le contrôle des ennemis. C'est désormais le rôle du roi auprès de l'ordre. Et en cela, le fait que le célèbre soit encore représenté sous une forme active. Vous avez notamment l'exemple ici. À une époque, la figure anthropomorphe royale est déjà bien appréciée. Ça amène la question, parce qu'effectivement, cette figure anthropomorphe royale qui apparaît à l'niveau de la première dynastie, est donc bien en place de l'iconographie durant la première dynastie. Et là, vous avez d'autres exemples qui datent de la même, de AA ou encore de Jet, qui représentent justement des célèbres agissants, à la place d'un roi anthropomorphe agissant. Ce thème semble toutefois disparaître avec le règne de Delphes. En tout cas, c'est peut-être de ce particulier du CER en Montréal qui fait sa demande de test. Le CER n'est pas qu'une manière d'écrire le droit, mais qui personnalise le droit. Les CER agissant d'ailleurs sont pour nous des CER personnalisés, à une exception, qui est le graphico-littéraire XXVIII. Toutefois, les dernières études de personnalisation et Cartalet propose d'attribuer ce CR au droit cher. D'ailleurs, je trouve que ce laisse également nommé ailleurs sur le tableau. Donc, il s'agit bien, encore une fois, du droit identifié, individualisé, personnifié, qui est actif et récupéré et progressif de ces anciens marqueurs agissants qui étaient présents dans le gouvernement. On a donc un individu, encore une fois, personnalisé le droit qui s'énonce à partir du concept général du droit. Ainsi, l'excellence de la rapproche de la colonne de la DLA3 relève des significations idéologiques variables. Ils entrent dans la composition de citations distinctes, cohabitent et éventuellement solaires. Et si le CRL est une représentation du pouvoir, il peut également s'interroger sur la nature de ce dernier en se demandant si, dès l'apparition de ce motif, est-ce qu'il existe déjà, est-ce qu'il signifie déjà un pouvoir pour le pouvoir vérifier le royal. En effet, placer un curseur pour penser l'apparition du premier roi est assez délicat. D'une part, car le terme de roi, chef ou autre ne sont pas dotés des mêmes définitions selon les auteurs des emplois, et outre ce problème de sémantique, ces notions ne correspondent pas forcément avec les théories qui existeraient dans les sociétés étudiées. Donc, en cherchant à voir sur ces sociétés des paramètres et des critères définis temporellement, nous essayons de proposer des schémas assez artificiels. Il faut donc plutôt privilégier une approche énigme, une approche qui interrogerait d'abord la manière dont ces individus désiraient se caractériser et être perçus par leur pouvoir. Et en cela, le CER est assez bon indice, puisque le repère justement une certaine évolution conceptuelle, avec ce possible passage que nous avons vu de la représentation du pouvoir en entité transcendante, qui est matérialisée par les CER anonymes, qui ne personnalisent pas un individu, les enseignes actives, les latéraux également de maîtriser les prisonniers, etc. Le passage de cette représentation du pouvoir un peu transcendant des conceptuels vers la personnification et la personnalisation de la figure du roi, qui toutefois est conçu dorénavant en tant qu'individu, vraiment personnage individualisé qui porte la royauté. Et ainsi, le CER entre dans le processus de construction de l'identité du chef et du roi, et à ce titre, il est recommandé d'aborder les réflexions conceptuelles autour de la notion de pouvoir. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Okay, so we have finished for okay. We have now a 10-minute debate for these two presentations. So if there are any questions or other comments, suggestions, please go on. In case I have a question for Dorian.
Yes.
Okay. No, in your presentation, you showed some men, probably with bow, and you told that probably is not the meaning that people with bow are related to hunt or whatever, but could be related maybe to a way to depict a man with a weapon, right? And so like in Valcamonica, but also in other parts, seems that until Neolithic, we have people with a bow are related to hunt and war, but after that period, seems that they are no more related to this kind of activity, and is more like a status, personal status of a person. So I have a bow, so I usually
Exactly.
hunt, and this usually is related to sporting hunt, not something related to provide food. Do you think it's similar, the process also there?
Well, as far as pre-dynastic Egypt is concerned, it was already symbolic meaning, because it has been demonstrated by archaeology that hunting was not the main source of food anymore during the 4th millennium BC already. So even when we have clear Nagadan production, so ideological production, so people with bow but involved in symbolic hunting activities, the context is quite clear. But when you are in margin areas, in the low desert, and especially in the area of Aswan, you have it's not the majority, but still we have several examples of scenes that are apparently similar to what we know from Nagadan production. So people, men with bows, etc., and animals, but let's say the feeling is not the same. So the organization, the composition is not the same. It's far more calm. The animal are in a line, and there's also lots of bovids, and not only bulls, like in Nagadan iconographic productions, but really cows. We have the udder sometimes. So it's very typical of what pastoral communities from Nubia could do. And in fact, what they were doing during the 4th millennium, but in Nubia. And so such scene could very well be present in at least the southern part of Upper Egypt, so Aswan and Wadi Abu Subayra and those sites, and especially Wadi Ras, it is famous new wadi that we are in the process of, it will be published quite soon, hopefully. We have a lot of clear Nagadan productions, but also a lot of productions that very much look like what we have in Lower Nubia. And some of them, like the one I showed, is really a mix between the two. And this started reflections such as this one, which was maybe we have people that were crossing these roads in the deserts that come from Nubia, and that just engraved things that are related with their own personal experience, that they are not necessarily the same that the Nagadan ones. And but still they are cohabitating, and they are very close to each other. They share the same roots, and Nubia and the Nagadans, they came from the same ancestral pastoral people that came from the Sahara. So it's really difficult to distinct these two traditions, but it very much looks like there is several traditions, and probably separated from only a few generations. It looks like it is at least interesting to try to follow that path and see if something could come out of this. It's an hypothesis. It's a new way of looking to rock art and using rock art to better understand the populations that were living there, and not only studying rock art for rock art and only for what is depicted, but trying to, and that's the main goal behind that, in fact, trying to put rock art studies inside the actual discussions in Egyptology, and make rock art studies not a mere sub-discipline of Egyptology, but really put it in the spotlight. And yeah, so I hope I'm managed to answer your question.
Yeah, perfectly. Thanks for the reply. Julie, are you here? So if there are no further questions, yes, Maria has a question for Hapke, but he went to sleep because he was in Australia, so he was quite late for the question. We made the question after he's in speak. So I think that we can stop here, having a small coffee break of more or less 5 minutes, so we can start soon at 4 p.m. more or less. Okay, thank you. See you later.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi everyone again. We start with the second part of the third session. Now we have a presentation that should be held by Ahmad Mohamed Hamdin, but from Sudan. But as you know, there's been some problems in Sudan, so he has been able to send me the presentation. I will read it for him. Unfortunately, I cannot reply to any question because it's not a topic that I know very well. After that, we will have Lucy Hafner in presence, Asdin that is online, and Ibrahim Raifei, who has sent a recording of his presentation. After that, we have a video for about 6 minutes about Azerbaijan rock art made by Dario Sigari. And so we can start with the presentation of Hamdin. Okay. The presentation by rock art of Wadi Gorgod in the western desert of the third cataract in Sudan. It's been made by Dr. Mohamed Hamdin from the Department of Archaeology, University of Al-Nilan in Sudan. The area that is in consideration is in the third cataract of the Nile, so it's in the territory of Sudan, and in the western bank of the Nile, in the northern part of Sudan. Okay. From December 2018 to January 2019, the first season of archaeological survey for the western desert of the third cataract region project was done by the team of the Department of Archaeology of the University of Al-Nilan, and each project was directly from the actual speaker, Dr. Ahmad Mohamed Hamdin. The main objective of the project was the research to search for archaeological evidences in the wadis at the desert of the western third cataract, included the Wadi Gorgod, that is the one that is in this case of study. Of course, also the wadis in the area. A special attention was paid to the paleo-environmental data, such as paleo-channels, paleo-lakes, and pools, and so on. Prehistoric sites, for instance, the extensively distributed of the Paleolithic and Neolithic site, featuring stones, stone structure, and other archaeological remains of the area out of the Nile Valley. There was previous works in the Wadi Gorgod. The petroglyphic in Wadi Gorgod were first briefly studied in the early 60s by the Italian mission of the University of Pisa. The expedition, directed by Michela Schiff, Giorgini, worked mainly in the Sedeiga and Soleb, and a discovery of rock art in Wadi Gorgod should be treated as an additional outcome of the archaeological prospection. Basing upon this research, Leone Hallar-Duhard began her fieldwork, which lasted from 1979 to 1985. This one-person extensive survey resulted in a number of publications issued across the year, and the publication you can see here in the slide. After that research, Jean Leclan mentioned activities in the Gorgoda region undertaken by the Sedeiga Archaeological Unit in 1991 and 1999. They would comprise photographic documentation and the GPS coordinates of selected rock art sites. To the best of our knowledge, these works were not published. The Gorgod rock art sites were also briefly explored without full documentation by the Mahaz survey project directed by Ali Osman and David Edwards in 2012. Of course, these works will remain valuable sources, but only focused on some rock art, in particular animals, and didn't document or mentioned two other drawings and archaeological sites associated with these drawings, which are of very importance in interpreting this site. Also, documentation by GPS was not used, and we have seen also previously this kind of documentation is really important for the analysis of the area. These studies dealt with rock art as three main cities, ABC, in the area of around 10 kilometers, while in fact constitute 36 sites for rock art. Also, the documentation with camera constituted only 1% of the whole documentation, and depend on documenting with drawings mostly, which was missing the scale. So we are not now sure of the real dimension of these engravings. These are the three areas. The area was divided, as told before, in three main sections according to the concentration distribution of the rock art and other sites, and based on the geomorphology of the wadis. The eastern section is the one that is shown in this slide, is located near the Nile. This area encompasses 14 kilometers over both banks of the Wadi. 34 archaeological sites were reported here, with the most common rock art sites, sometimes associated with Neolithic sherds and Neolithic tools, stone structure and tethering stone. This example we will see later. The central section located is around 6 kilometers from the Nile. The area encompasses like 9 kilometers over both banks of the Nile. Was recorded five sites, and 4 of these are with rock art, and one was a section of a wadi wall, so with a vertical surface. And the last area, the western section, was located around 8 to 10 kilometers from the Nile. The area encompasses 10 kilometers on both the banks of the river, the wadi, sorry. 11 sites were reported here, with the majority of these workshop areas dating to the Paleolithic, with some pottery sherds collected from the surface, and they may be pre-care material. 2 stone structures and tethering stones were also found. The landscape of this section has been heavily damaged by gold digging activity. The results of this rock art research was that the first season, shows that there are more than 3,000 rock art, some of which are reported already by Hallard Hart, but others were discovered by new for the first time. The rock art includes a wide range of subjects, including domestic animals such as cattle, horses, camel, goats, dogs, and others, as well as wild animals such as giraffes, elephants, gazelle, hippopotamus, crocodile, birds, and other figures. And of course, also humans, inscription, geometric signs, crosses, and other kind of figures. So there is a large variety of signs. The majority of rock art in the Wadi Gorgod lay on more or less horizontal panels, although there are vertical panels, even not much. Cattle drawing is one of the rock art dominating the Wadi Gorgod. The technique and the style that appears in the area is mostly based on engraving an outline of the object on the soft surface of the sandstone. This style and technique dominated the Wadi Gorgod, and there are no evidences of the painted rock art in this wadi. In Wadi Gorgod, there is not an homogeneous rock art assemblage. It seems that all majority stages of Sudan history are represented, from the prehistoric era to the fairly recent times. The majority of depiction can be situated in a time frame around the Kerma period, so the Kerma dynastic period, so around 25th century before Christ, until the Roman Islamic period. Here are some examples of the rock art that is present in this area. We see that is mostly Cutler rock art, so we can see some example here. You see that the stones are usually horizontal or stone lane is not part of the vertical wall. You can see kettle with big horns in different shape of horns, so we are dealing with different kind of kettles. Some of them has the body fully depicted, some other are only outlined or have some representation inside, so some lines in the body. We have also camel and camel riders. So here we have a camel alone, but here we can see it with a rider on the back. Here some other examples. In this case, seems that he is handling some sort of weapon, probably a spear. We have also hunting with dog signs. We can see the two animals. We have also wild animals depiction. In this case, we have some giraffes. That is one of the most common animals among the wild animals. It's interesting also the different style of the representation. We have the outline as usual, but also this kind of representation where there is not an outlined body, but the whole body is represented by this tagged dot. We have also more complex scenes with, in this case, we have a big giraffes with part of the body that is engraved and the other part is just tagged. And we can see other animals around the main figure. We have some wild antelopes, probably. And we have also birds, or ducks. I found these really funny, fat birds. And it's interesting because we have an entire procession of this bird. It's not a singular bird. And we have also an ostrich. And we have also this panel with a large density of birds, mainly represented. And this is interesting because there are only birds on the stone. There are no other representation. Instead, in this one, we found different kind of animals, mainly this procession of birds, but up and down we have also other animals. We have also footprint or sandal, as we have also here. We have also both outlined and fully packed. You have human figures in different shapes and models. We have more, let's say, abstract and other a little bit more detailed. These are part of a larger scene. And we see also them riding probably horses, or as we see before, also camels. Then we have also geometric symbols. In this case, seems like a sun, or at least a circle with rays, and other peculiar and probably not easily recognizable figures. Here we have this strange symbol. And we have also couples, rock walls, or grindings from the cavity. That is, as we have seen also before. Is interesting also the fact that there are dots around the cup marks. And of course, we have also boats representing different kinds of shapes with without bore and with the poles. We have also the boat that was carried on by people with linked with the rope to the boat. And we have also the representation of offering tables, really interesting. We have inscription. Unfortunately, I don't know which kind of writing is. And we have also the tethering or trapping stone that is quite peculiar. There are 150 tethering stones reported in 3 different areas of the Wadi Gorgod, most of them from the southern flat area, in and around the edge of the small course and drainage. These are very similar to examples that were reported from the eastern part of the third cataract. The methodology for documenting these stones included measuring the length, the width of the stone, that is between 250 and 850, so quite different in shape. The weight was between 6 to 80 kilos, so still from very small to quite large. The techniques to creating this tethering stone that we will see later, they identified 2 techniques. One is packing across the edge of the 2 ends of the middle part of the stones, so going from the external to the internal, and one from the internal to the external. So choosing in the middle part and going to the external part. There are 4 materials used for these stones: is sandstone, ferruginous sandstone, basalt, and granite. The geological location of the stone includes some of them was located on the course of the water drainage, and the other on gravel in the rock plateau that was found around the area. These are the stones. So you see that they seemed there was like a rope around, so for that it was called tethering stones, and you can find them in the desert without in a specific environment, maybe around some building or so, but you can find them alone. Among the Paleolithic sites, they have been found 14 Paleolithic sites. There was a clear concentration of the Paleolithic materials in the western section of the Wadi at the site, and while in the site 41 was associated with a stone structure. Other sites were located in the eastern part of the Wadi, including its 3 sites, while the site 27 was a complex of stone structures. Paleolithic finds were scattered on the surface, including a hand axe, level point, and scrapers. Here are some examples of them. Among the Neolithic sites, the Neolithic materials was concentrated at the site 2. This site was located on a small rocky hill toward the eastern part of the Wadi and was associated with the rock art depicting cattle, camels, and dogs, footprints, marks, dots, and cup marks. A stone structure of 1 meter in diameter was also noted. Neolithic sherds and Neolithic tools were scattered on the surface of the area. Lithic artifacts included points, various blades, scrapers, crescents, and borers, all made from Nile pebble. However, there is a complete absence of other origin industries like lunates or bones. A few Neolithic pottery sherds were collected with dotted decoration from this site. This is a common pattern on Neolithic pottery from the Third Cataract region, with other common decoration, including simple impressions and chevrons. Dotted wavy lines pottery, which provides an essential link between the Khartoum hospital site and the Shahanai, is completely absent from the Third Cataract site. Here are some example of the material found on the Neolithic side. We can see also the decoration of these small dots on the chart. There was also Christian sites where Christian pottery from the Christian period was recorded from the surface of the sites, these three sites. A brief analysis of these fragments demonstrated that most were well made with a few handmade shards. Fragments were typically from bowl and cup shapes, which by the form and style are characteristic of the classic and the late medieval period. Here are some examples. And the stone structure, they found several stone structures of varying shapes and types, into the circular, ovate, and ring, with varying diameters, measuring from 1 to 13 meters, and until 1 meter of height. These were located on a small hills, plateau, or flat area, so more or less all around the environment. Some of these were associated with rock art sites, while other was related to the Paleolithic and Neolithic sites. These are the images of these structures. You can see here and here. And there was also white dry stone walls. The white dry stone walls was reported in the middle section of Wadi Gorgon, around 8 kilometers from the Nile. There are two walls, two divided by the Wadi, with a total length of the wall being 100 meters. It was associated with rock art depicting cattle, rider, giraffes, and boats. Wadi walls are one of the most prominent archaeological features in the Third Cataract region, and feature dry stone walls with no or rare artifacts indeed associated with the site. In the Third Cataract region, the Wadi walls were constructed by combining smaller blocks of stones around large outcrops of the mountains and the hills, in common with others in wadis. Therefore, all walls are strong and rough and porous, at a height not tall enough to hide a standing man. Some authors assume that these walls were game traps in use during the 7th to 2nd millennium BC. Habler and Hester found such walls in the Libyan desert too, and correlated then with the Sikh people. They recorded walls of several kilometers in length, and mentioned that they were game traps built across wadis and between mountains for capturing hostage and possible gadgets. Rimmer, in the southern Great Sand Sea of Egypt, also identified examples of game drivers or traps. In Sudan, near the Fourth Cataract, Wolf described up to 120 meters long dry stone walls observed together with Neolithic artifacts. However, he could not associate Neolithic finds with these structures. Wolf and Novotny found similar structures in the Fourth Cataract region with no artifacts for relative dating. Wellesley identified many types of these walls in the Fourth Cataract, among them what he called the boundary walls, and mentioned that their dating was problematic and their function unclear, since they were never high enough to form an effective barrier against either men or animals. Tahir and Sadiq have recently presented a new hypothesis for the function of these walls, based on the wall design and landscape situation. They suggested that the first motivation for the walls was for water harvest and silt accumulation. The practice was for agriculture and drinking water during dry periods in the post-Holocene, mainly during pre-Kerma and Kerma period, but even as late as the Christian period. The second suggested wadi walls might have been used as protective enclosures. Here are some the images of these dry walls, these structures. Final remarks. Today, the archaeological remains in the area of Wadi Gorgod are particularly endangered, as some of rock art panels have already been destroyed by numerous gold diggers operating in this region. During our survey, there are many recent gold mining and gold camps were reported in 3 sections of the wadis. Satellite imagery study done by McLean indicated that the region of the Wadi Gorgod hills between the settlement of Solv and Sesedi was a significant source of gold production in the 18th dynasty. And while the mineralization zones were relatively small, miners exploited these resources through surface or near surface working. Satellite images analysis revealed the imprint of ancient trackways and the direct links from the sites to Solv and Sesedi. Analysis of the stone of influence makes it clear that the infrastructure supported multiple sites. The characteristic of campsite varied in size, which suggested that a relatively small number of workers mined this site. Here are some other images of this rock art. You can see different in the style. You can see a more packed figures and the more like scratched on the surface. So there are different kind of style. So this is, since it's really interesting, you see a giraffe eating directly from a tree, probably a palm. Here the publication about this project. This report from the first season of the archaeological survey for the Western Desert region project confirmed that Wadi Gorgod is a very complex, containing rich rock art, prehistoric workshops, stone structures, and numerous tethering stones, with a date ranging from the Paleolithic to Islamic period. It requires comprehensive figure excavation and more analytical studies in the future. Thank you for your attention. Thank you to Abdin to have done this very beautiful, interesting presentation. I heard from him a couple of days ago that he is well and he's working he is still in the fieldwork, so he's working right now. And he was not able to send to deliver the speech himself, so he sent this presentation. We can go to the next presentation, held by Uzi Afner, that is in presence. Okay. I give the word to Uzi Afner. Yeah. And he will speak about the symbolic role of ibex in the rock art.
Okay, good afternoon to you. I would like to open with 2 warnings. One, I'm aware that according to some researchers, it is inappropriate to interpret rock art. It's not in our hands. But since I'm a bad boy, I'm attempting to interpret, but I will recommend to you not to accept my interpretation. Second, what I show you is a very short abbreviation of a longer story, but even though I'm not sure that I will be standing in 20 minutes, so excuse me if I exceed the speed limits. Okay. How does it work? Here? Oh. Okay. Let's move this one. Oh. Okay. You see here the map of the Negev desert in Israel. Mediterranean, Dead Sea, and the ratio between the annual average precipitation in blue and the annual potential evaporation in yellow. The whole desert is a harsh desert, especially the Elat region in the south. You see that there is much more evaporation than precipitation, which means not good conditions to live in, but there is life. First of all, some facts about the ibex in Rockout. Male ibex images dominate the Negev Rockout. This is the ultimate king of Rockout in the Negev since 6000 BC. Almost near present. Female ibex are extremely rare. I actually know only one case in Har Karkom, which is a female ibex. From 6000 BC, ibex bones are extremely rare in excavated sites in the Negev. Therefore, ibex hunting, which we see in the Rockout sometimes, did not play an economical role, but something else. Gazelle bones, on the other hand, are common in excavated sites, but gazelles are absent in Rockout. So something is happening here. And in addition, the ibex images are common also in quite flat areas of the northwestern Negev, far away from the natural habitat of the ibex, which is cliffy. So all these actually indicate that the motivation for depicting ibex on Rockout was not sympathetic magic, as it's described in some other places. So why was the ibex so dominant in the Rockout? First of all, how dominant? Two surveys in the Negev Highlands, one of Razi Yahel, showing that the ibex took 30% of all other motifs, which are much above 100 motifs. In another survey of Leo Schwimmer, the ibex take almost 40% out of the animals. Also quite many animals, but this is quite a lot. What about other countries? Two examples. One from a region in Armenia, 66%. This was presented in the IFRA conference 3 years ago. And from Tanj, Ladakh, 65% from all motifs. Quite a lot. In addition, in Iran, the ibex occur in over 95% of Rockout sites in all Iran, which is quite a large area. So what's happening here? Back to the Negev, the ibex occurs with in association with a few other images. I'll show you only a few here. With a snake, with an Orante figure, with footprints, with male fertility, with female fertility, and more. Each one of them actually deserves a separate lecture and interpretation, but obviously we cannot do it now. The ibex is also very common in ancient art, like in the copper hoard of Nahal Mishmar, which is dated to the second half of the 4th millennium BC, right after the beginning of metallurgy, and many objects bear ibex images. Another chalcolithic jar from a site just north of Beersheba, northern Negev, with 7 ibexes like taking off. An EB1 basalt bowl from Bet Shean Valley with 2 ibex on opposite sides. A later example of the Iron Age, Hatzor, an ibex with bird above it, and also from the Iron Age, a stamp, civil impression with an ibex dedicated or belonging to Yael. Yael is ibex in Hebrew. From Iran, there are many examples, mainly from tombs of the 5th to 3rd millennium BC, mainly 5th, 4th. These are, I took in the Louvre. In Pakistan, the Hindu Valley, many ibexes. In the Nakada culture, as we saw before, also many examples. South Arabia, the ibex occurs on incense burners made of different materials, always with snakes, which are good friends of the ibex, and the moon. And also in much later Ottomanid example, 2 of them were found in Iran, like flying, attributing the wings to the ibex, making some kind of divine. Here in Saudi Arabia, it means that the ibex is taking part in ritual. And this also what happens in other cases in different cultures, that libation pots are shaped like ibex. So the ibex again takes part in rituals. In La Marmara, the ibex-shaped pots are traded. Sorry. So what is the ibex? Here we have a clue. We see here, okay, 2 ivory plates from Ugarit, a city on the Syrian Mediterranean coast, late bronze. In one of them, we see a goddess with Egyptian attributes of Hathor, but this goddess is actually identified as Baalat, the goddess of the Canaanite, nursing 2 young gods. In this one, in the middle, we see a goddess feeding 2 ibexes. These 2 ibexes appear very often on decoration of pottery and other types of art on both sides of a tree. The tree symbolizes the goddess Asherah. We know it from Ugaritic texts and also from the Bible. So altogether, the ibexes are representing actually young gods next to their mother. Another clue is, again, from Iran, we have 2 statues of copper of a god with the ibex horns, and also on steel impressions, we see gods with the ibex horns holding snakes. Again, they are good friends. So back to rock art. The most common association of the ibex is a dog, or sometimes also predators, leopards and wolves. In a lower frequency, also with the hunter, archer, but with dog, it is very, very common. Not only the Negev. Here we see 3 examples from Saudi Arabia, with hunters and without hunters, also from Upper Egypt, and also from the Alps, from Kyrgyzstan. See how small is a hunter compared to the ibex. The ibex, also larger than the dogs, get a lot of emphasis. Another example from Ladakh, another example from Mongolia, the dogs are chasing the ibex. From Armenia, the same scenery. From China, the same. And here from Nakhwane, yesterday I took the picture. And even from California. This is not an ibex. There are no ibex in California. But this is the bighorn. And later we will see that the bighorn actually bears the same symbolism like the ibex. in the general art of the workout, the same story. A vicious dog, oh, sorry.
No, going back.
Yes. Okay. Here, from Iran prehistoric pottery, a vicious dog behind the ibex with an exaggerated beard. Later we'll understand why. Also here, hunter and a dog, another dog from early Egypt. Also, 3 dogs attacking horned animals with the ibex in the center. From South Arabia, Shiva, a tombstone of a hunter with the dog and the ibex, and so forth. Back to our region, in Aqaba, 2 industrial Chalcolithic villages were excavated. In one of them, Hujayrat al-Ghazlan, 4 wall decorations were made on plaster, mud plaster. All of them contain ibex. 2 of them contain ibex, an Oanta figure, and a predator. The same association we see in rock art quite often, and also in much later, in a box of stone, from Cyprus. The same thing, an ibex, dog, and a goddess in Oante. Oante, by the way, is not a prayer. This requires a separate lecture, but not now. Also, another common association of the ibex is with the footprints. Also, footprints deserve another lecture, but not now. But here we see 2 examples. One from the Negev highlands, a pair of footprints with an ibex pointing down. Here, an earlier one, 3000 BC from Uvda Valley, an ibex with the head up. What does it mean? This one, with the head down, is on the way to the underworld. He is dying. And this one is coming back to life. This story, I'm sorry that the presentation is converted from a Mac program, so many things are distorted here, excuse me. The issue of dying and resurrected God was intensively studied by James Fraser more than 100 years ago, and more recently by Trygve Mettinger. There's much new material. Trygve is a good friend of mine. But we cannot analyze it now. Anyway, quite a few times in the Negev and also in other places, we see mirrored ibexes. Here, from near Elat, we see a leopard with a raised tail behind a live ibex, and under the surface, we see a dead ibex. Please notice that the lower one, the dead one, is larger than the live one. Here, a parallel from Armenia. Did they have the cellular phones? Also, an example from Dagestan. The dead ibex is larger than the live one. And even in the Akkadian seal impression, you see here the live, the muzi, the dying and resurrected God, and the dead one, which is larger. And here again, we see the same familiar dog and the ibex. The ibex has a very good connection to death. Before we saw a connection to fertility, but also to death. In many examples, we see here only one. An alabaster model of a burial boat from the tomb of Tutankhamen with 2 ibex heads. And now we can understand the role of the dog that killed the ibex. Therefore, the dog represents the underworld, like Anubis, the jackal in Egypt, or Kerberos in the Greek mythology and art, and so forth. It is also similar to what we see here in the upper part of this Mesopotamian seal. Dog is killing the ibex. Then the question is, what is the hunting? If it was not economical, like I tried to show before, what is it? Here, in this example, we see not a hunting scene, but the killing scene. The scene is focusing on the act of killing. The ibex was caught before, but now he's shot by an arrow. This is more or less what we see here. The hunter holds the ibex on the horns. And let the dogs do the job. Here, something strange is happening. The hunter is shooting an arrow through the horns of the ibex and killing the dog. This is similar to this Persian scene impression. The hunter is killing the lioness and saving the ibex. This is similar to what we see in the lower part of the same scene from northern Mesopotamia, Tepe-Jian. The snake, the good friend of the ibex, is killing the dog, and the ibex is happy. And this is also what we see here from the Negev Highlands. This brings us to the book of Sergeant, South Arabian Hunt. Mainly in the 60s, he joined many hunting adventures in Arabia, mainly in Hadramaut, and described them very carefully as an anthropologist. In general, the story is this. Before hunting, people of a village or some villages together, making 3 or 4 days of ceremonies in which they expect the shaman, which is called Mansab, to tell them what is the right time to go and hunt the ibex. Then, for 1 or 2 days, they go and hunt. When they return to their village or villages with the ibex, they make 3 more days of ceremonies and share the meat of the ibex for 200, 300 people. How many calories each person gain from a small piece of meat compared to how many calories did he spend during the 7 or 10 days of ceremonies before and after all this? This is not an economical issue. However, while interviewing a Mansab, the shaman, he says, if we do not hunt the ibex, the rain would not come to us. If we do hunt, 4 days after the hunt, rain will come. This fine expression also in the Himyarite inscription about 3000 AD, but we can skip it. The connection of ibex to rain is expressed in many different ways. I'll show you a few. This is the bowl from Susa, found in a tomb. We see here an ibex with tree-like horns, with a dog on its back and dog behind him, another bird, also the same upside down here. And they all stand on a comb. Ackerman, based on parallels, deciphered the comb as a rain-giving cloud. Like here, the god Anu is giving rain next to an ibex, and this may explain why ibexes sometimes are depicted with exaggerated beard. Also from Nakada, the ibex is like rain giving. Also these storks might be rain too, also the opposite one. And from Egypt, also from some other places, we have cones shaped like ibex, and the teeth may symbolize rain. This connection is also found in ethnography as described by Frankfurt, ceremonies of the Kurds and the Yazidis. The main figure in the ceremony, a dancer, a shaman, which is dancing in a costume of either an ibex or a goat. Interestingly enough, in the desert of California, the hunt of the bighorn is done ceremoniously for the same purpose exactly. And in another example, we see here the pronghorn with footprint, with a snake, same combination that we have in the Near East and other places, and they give rain, all these dots. From the Negev, we have the two examples I brought here. One, this panel has a few different layers. The lower layer, where is it? Oh, okay, is this and this. You see here two ibex back to back with the rain. So the question is, where did the importance of the ibex came from? One clue is that the ibex often occur with the celestial bodies, with the star, the sun, the cross, which is either sun or star, also moon. Also in the general out of the Near East, here examples from Iran. And according to Hartner, followed by Edwin Smith, who died 2 years ago, in the past, based on archaeoastronomy and ancient art, they construct a star constellation shaping like an ibex, which is here. Until the mid-4th millennium BC, it fitted quite well the cycle of life and death of Dumuzi, coming up to life in December and dying in the month of Tammuz, Dumuzi, which is July. However, because of the change of the timing of all constellations, by 1 month in every 2016 years, in the mid-4th millennium BC, the timing of the coming up or appearing and disappearing of the star constellation in the sky did not fit anymore the cycle of life of Dumuzi. They cancelled it and broke it to 2, which is Capricorn and Aquarius. Normal ibex. Actually, the ibex disappeared from the sky before emergence of writing. So this is why we almost don't see any ibex in written texts for the Near East. However, the ibex did not fully disappear. First of all, we have hints to his position in the sky by the name of the 9th Sumerian king, late 3rd millennium BC, Enun Dala Ana, which is Lord Ibex of heaven, or King Ibex of heaven. And also, much later, 700 BC, a bronze bowl from Loristan, Iran, but originated in Syria or Lebanon. On the bowl, we see a starful sky with the sun, the moon, 6 constellations of the zodiac, and tiny inscription in Aramaic giving their names. In the center, Orion, striding above an ibex. Here we have a problem, because here the ibex is facing left, but beginning with the Greek astronomical tradition, we see here Lepus, which is a rabbit facing right. So theoretically, only theoretically, we can also imagine here an ibex facing left, but some support to this theory we get from the Syrian seed impression. We see here an ibex deity holding a rabbit, and here a crouching ibex with rabbit ears. So we have here a hint to a combination of two different traditions, seeing the sky, different things. So we can go to this summary. The ibex was indeed very dominant in the rock art of most of the northern hemisphere, or is its parallels. The same association of the ibex, some of them I showed you here, recur often in both rock art and in the general art of most of the northern hemisphere. Therefore, it must have reflected a widespread myth, which is barely known in ancient written texts. I explained before why. Like many myths, the unknown mythology of the ibex is connected to the sky. The ibex mainly represented the young god, dying and resurrected every year with the cycle of the seasons, such as the Dumuzi that I mentioned before, Baal, Osiris, Adonis. It symbolized both fertility and death. Although it is considered ethically inappropriate by some researchers to interpret rock art, some motives can be deciphered with the help of ancient and ethnographic, artistic, and textual materials. How much can be deciphered? That depends on our curiosity. So here is our familiar ibex. A modern art showing the ibex, the symbol of evil, unlike the ancients. And if you like a license for interpretation, you can take it, for example, from James Fraser. That's all.
Thank you. I ask you to stay here.
Okay.
Because it seems that Azedin is not here. It's the next speakers, so we can have a debate directly with you. So if there are questions or order from the public or from online, we can directly do it with you.
It's all clear.
Sì, faccio la traduzione. Vieni qua perché si sente.
Vedendo tutte queste immagini di Stambecco, mi chiedevo se i luoghi dove sono state trovate queste cose da un punto di vista climatico facevano sì che esistevano gli stambecchi, visto che adesso vivono solo in alta montagna, o erano, diciamo, delle forme antiche di capre.
Okay. He asking if the painted or this ibex representation, if the environment where these ibex were represented was an environment that where ibex naturally live, or is changed the climate and now are no more there and before was there.
Okay. The natural habitat of the ibex is cliffs in the desert, in areas which are below 100 millimeter of rain. There are other ibexes, like now in the Alps,
yes,
and also in the Himalaya. but these are a little different. Today, they live in the whole Negev and the Judean desert with no problem. They are not hunted. So what we can see today is more or less the carrying capacity of the area for ibex in our climate. The past climate, we know something about it from a combination of many different fields of research. In general, the climate of the Near East was a little better than today, from the 8th millennium BC to the 4th millennium BC. How much better? In general, about 30% more precipitation.
Okay, I will translate. Okay, finish.
Okay. Now, the rock art showing ibex, we find also away from its habitat, in flat areas, in sandy areas, like in Jordan, in the Negev, and also in other regions. It was not depicted on rocks only in its own environment, but away from it.
Thank you. Praticamente, praticamente sta dicendo che è un po' differente rispetto allo stambecco che noi abbiamo qua. È uno stambecco che solitamente si trova dove ci sono delle palesi, esatto. E quindi in quell'habitat sì si trovano. La cosa interessante è che circa, mi sembra, il 30% delle incisioni di questi ibex si trova al di fuori del suo habitat naturale, dove ci sono aree desertiche o piane, quindi non si trova. E quindi pare che ci sia comunque una trasposizione di questo, però dove ci sono, diciamo che è il suo ambiente naturale in cui si trova. Diceva anche circa il 30% in meno di precipitazione rispetto a quello che ovviamente una volta era. Grazie.
So, please do not accept my interpretation.
Okay,
Paolo, I have a comment and a question to Dr. Abner.
Okay, please, Federico Mena, is a question.
First of all, nice to see you again. Excellent presentation, like always, and original interpretation of death and resurrection. And I agree with you that rock art should be interpreted. By just counting the number of figures in rock art is not will not give a good information about what the ancestors left as a message to ourselves. I have just a question to you about dating rock art. I understood today that the origin of ibex image in the rock art of Negev is back to 6,000 years before Christ. Am I right? How do you date the rock art in this way?
How do you date the ibex? Back to 6,000 BC.
Okay. We do not have a good date yet of rock art of ibex, but in excavated sites in the Negev, in Sinai, and in the southern Jordan, we see a lot of ibex bones until 6,000 BC, until the beginning of late Neolithic. And from beginning of late Neolithic and later, we do not see ibex bones anymore because the people adopted already herding. So the source of protein was the herd and not hunting of the ibex anymore. They continued to draw, to depict on rocks hunting of the ibex, but the hunting was not economical anymore, only ceremonial, ritual.
Oh, I agree with that, absolutely. It was not their food, and hunting has a symbolic value. But my question was, how could you date the rock art to 6,000 years before Christ?
By association to sites, which is not safe enough. Honestly, not only in Israel, we're in problem in dating rock art. Relative dating, relative chronology is not a problem, it's well known, but absolute dating is still a problem.
Okay, thank you.
I can add a little more. Quite often in the Negev Highlands, we see rock art in association with inscriptions, either Talmudic, Nabatean, a few Greek and Latin, and also many Arabic. Arabic writing, which begins in the 7th century AD. Very often, we can tell that, let's say, this ibex is darker than the inscription. This ibex is lighter than the inscription, so we get relative chronology. But this is all we can do.
Well, I agree, but you can only refer to the late rock art because inscriptions belong to the first millennium as a wide interpretation. Well, in any way, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I repeat, excellent presentation.
Thank you, Federico. There are other questions? No. Okay. So thank you again, and we can go to the next one. Okay.
Thank you.
So, is Azetin Fergui here, or Ferenc Jaretsky? You are missing of a speaker. Okay, seems that he's not here. So, Vodario?
No. I was saying that we can move to the next one.
Exactly. We have Ibrahim Rafiei. Has sent his recording of the presentation. So I think that it will start in a minute and we project them.
Vado io con la condivisione da remoto.
Grazie.
Hello everyone. We're presenting the work of Ibrahim Rafiei, and we're looking at an open-air petroglyph site in southern Iran, which has the potential of increasing our understanding of the rock art iconography of Egypt. Beautiful rounded rock here on a wide and flat plain. The Deptile site, about 5 kilometers east-west, is situated in the central district of Bastak County, almost the province of Iran. It's 30 kilometers from Bastak city. It's situated close to the Persian Gulf, and so to trade in the local area and then moves in the Arabian Sea. However, mountains create a barrier to a short route to the coast, as you can see in the lower image, meaning that a route of 170 kilometers is needed to reach the Persian Gulf. This petroglyph site has the potential of increasing our understanding of past cultures and trade networks. The rock engravings are considered to span the time from the 9th millennium BC until the Islamic period. Ibex feature heavily in the iconography. An ibex is a species of stocky wild goat. These ones are sometimes called the Iranian ibex or Bezwar goats, Persian in Persian. Over the ages, the Iranian ibex has been attributed with healing properties. Bezoars from the intestine of the Iranian ibex were even used in medieval Europe to cure many ailments. Ibex images are also found on pottery in the region, and some pottery is considered animated as it has sequential imagery on the vessels. You can see a heavily patinated example of engraved ibex here. The central one is particularly impressive for its detail and design. The rock art technique is largely indirect and direct pecking. The petroglyphs stand out against the iron oxide hue of the rounded open-air rocks. Some more recent engravings in the area appear to be scratched onto the rock. Note the different patinated layers, the more recent engravings being the lighter coloured ones. Compared to the designs of the rock in the previous slide, these are more simplistic, which may point to different engraving styles for different periods, uses, or simply the skill or time dedicated to creating them. The analysis of superimpositions will be an important feature of future research for the site of the detail. There are various styles of ibex represented on the rocks in detail. The one on the upper right appears to be created in the three-stroke style. Given that this style has been previously researched by Fossati in Milan, it is possible that it correlates to a similar period, such as the 4th millennium BC, that is, rock art of the second phase. As direct dating is rarely achievable in open-air rock art sites, these comparisons are invaluable. The engraving on the right has its forms depicted in an almost spiral form. There are various styles of ibex represented on the rocks in detail. There are also the two small images on the right. One has its forms in an inverted U shape, whilst the other has them almost flattened lines at its back. A comparison with other regions within Iran, such as northern Iran and the Central Plateau, as well as neighbouring countries such as Oman, where the three-stroke ibex figure is present, shows a wide range across the Arabian Peninsula, extending into Iran. The analysis of superimpositions will be an important feature of future research for the site of detail. This ibex style is more naturalistic and may have double horns to indicate movement, or this could be part of another engraving. Even the beard below the ibex's chin is depicted. Anthropomorphic motifs are another important characteristic of the area and feature heavily within the rock art. They can be found as individual anthropomorphic motifs or grouped, as you see on the left. On the right, it is likely that the larger anthropomorph was created at an earlier stage than the smaller, lighter coloured one on its right. Such figures in Valcamonica are seen as praying figures. This may also be the case in detail. Here is a nice example of an anthropomorph with arms in a downward position, a motif which does occur in the area. Engraved hand motifs, often the correct size of an adult hand, can be seen on many of the rocks. Future research is looking at the statistics of hands on rocks to discern if they are more frequently found on rocks by themselves or in correlation with other motifs, such as anthropomorphs. So far, there appear to be more representations of right hands, but some hands have less distinct thumbs, and this makes statistical observation more difficult. Though the focus is on petroglyphs, there are painted hands as well in the region. They are found at Eshkafte Arwood, 5 kilometres from the city of Bastek in the Galvest Mountains. They look like hand stencils that may have been painted around them. It's claimed that they are from the Neolithic period. You might be able to see some very small, finely executed anthropomorphs anatomies on the left of the hands. Polymorphs, or foot shapes, are frequent in the area. Like those found in Valcamonica, they are usually shoe images. Some depict toes or shoe decorations. It's interesting to note that they sometimes superimpose the simple ibex engravings, but they can also be found with engravings over them. The pattern roof-like forms of the far left image are
Valeria, prova con VLC.
Come, scusa?
Prova con VLC se ce l'hai, che magari non
Provo a vedere un altro software, sì.
Ok.
Hello everyone, we're presenting the work of Ibrahim Rafi and we're looking at an open cells or PLC. Though the focus so far, there appear to be more
Valeria, provo a mandarlo io da qua, aspetta.
No, dovrei avercela fatta e adesso riprendo la condivisione su VLC.
Ok.
Devi però attivare l'audio.
Valeria, un secondo, provo io da qua.
It may be the first for cancellation of art, or perhaps more recent an expression, possibly intended damage. When we think that running regional lockout style lines for the area, these wooden motifs may be costumes or theatre shows.
È il bello della diretta, Paolo, non si sente.
You can also see little human motifs in the base of the region. These both motifs may contribute to the importance of the sea trade in the region. This develops possibly an interpretation of the double-ended balloon ship. The site is an inland coast, as we mentioned previously, and does have a mountain range between it and the closest one coast, but it may still represent the importance of the vote in regard to the traders, to the goods trading, and to the individuals creating the trade, who may have been personally associated with votes, such as sales. The trade route of the Persian Gulf and its further connection to the Silk Road trade route was likely to have brought many traders through this area. The concentric circles and spirals are another reading feature, and due to the heavy patination of these, they are considered much older than many other lighter iron industries. You can see different views of the same rock in these photos, highlighting the composition aspect of different faces of the rock and the differences in colour and patination. This rock exhibits another style of spiral effect, which is also heavily patinated. This supports the analysis that the spiral is an older form and earlier set of iconographic expression. There are also things which might be arboric or tree forms. These are not very common within the site, but stand out as being distinct from the other engravings. You can see two indicated by the arrows. Of course, other possible interpretations of these have not been ruled out. Other forms, sometimes abstract, are also found at their top. Here you see a possible game or grip, a strange anthropomorphic what might be large-eyed low, and one of many unidentified species. This anthropomorphism middle is more complex than some of the simpler anthropomorphic functions, and with the large hand representations, is reminiscent of some hand forms on anthropomorphs found in the Canyonlands National Park in Utah, USA. The right image may have some correlation with the symbols to the ancient South Arabian script, or they may simply be abstract figures. The composition is sometimes complex to interpret, as on this rock, but often has to be some lines that are able to identify or interpret, such as four-legged animals or perhaps even an entire hunting scene. This beautifully framed motif has been interpreted as either a polymorph or a synthesis. The use of framing is apparent on many of the rocks. Some of the rocks chosen lend themselves to the surfaces of frame or pipe features. In this case, it's possible that the fissure dividing the chosen rounded panel surface was not present before the laying of layers. It would be interesting to document the contents of the soil and at the base of the rack to see if it contained any of the grading materials or other interesting evidence. The rocks imaged from within the landscape context highlight their visibility and distance. These rounded rocks stand out within the landscape despite their small size. They may be evidence of trading or simply areas dedicated to veneration. Many of the rocks chosen are rounded in appearance, and the engravings on them are visible from low congregation. A preliminary study of one area of the site reported more than 400 rocks. Local scholars are not only driving the research in their farm, but also promoting its conservation and tourism. There's great pride in this heritage resource. The proximity of some of the rocks to buildings requires management and provide effective protection of this heritage element. Involvement of the community in this process is invaluable for generating appreciation for rock art and developing its potential for the community. The conservation of rocks includes increasing the developments and recording and plotting these rocks. Plotting their position using GPS data and creating some small barriers for those in the hillside areas or roads to protect them from erosion caused by people or bush animals settling. In the first image, you can see some erosion damage from the start of the building material, and in the second, the exfoliated or chipped surface is there. Here, a whole section of the whether natural or community foods. Natural growing processes also contribute to conservation challenges. Whether this was for ritualistic or territorial, it points to the importance of the earth for the display of these things. This study extends current research to the region and provides insights into past cultures and the associated imagery. The current aim is to create an effective database and recording of rocks to improve research and conservation. The study of the chronology and interpretation of fertile rock art is still in its early stages. In the past, homesteads as well as business people researching the site have provided revenue to the locals and the cultural experience, staying with families and eating well food. The potential for tourism and economic revenue will assist in the conservation of fertile rock art. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. Please feel free to ask our panel members any questions, and thank you for listening.
Okay, we finished also with the video from the speech from Rafael on open-air petroglyph site in southern Iran. Sorry for the inconvenience with the streaming. I think that now we can have a video from Darius Sikari on rock art in Azerbaijan.
Yes. So, yeah, just one very brief introduction. I mean, this video is a video that represents the first step of the new project that we have just started. Well, we are going to start finally next month. We, in 2019, we went to Gobustan to start a new research project, and due to the pandemic, of course, we had to stop, and we are going to start in a month. So this video is going to be a very brief introduction to the topic, and nothing. I'll share the screen and hope you enjoy it. The Gobustan cultural landscape is located within the Gobustan State Historical Artistic Reserve, which is 60 kilometers south to Azerbaijan capital city, Baku. The Gobustan National Park covers a quite huge area that extends for 5,500 hectares about, and includes 5 main rock art concentrations: Büyük Daş, Küçük Daş, Cengiz Dağı ve Şıkkaya Şandan. The region is at the southeastern apex of the Great Caucasus Mountain Range of Western Back, as you can see. Played a main role in shaping these landscapes. Gobustan, which means the land of dry riverbank, is characterized by a rugged landscape within a semi-arid environment. The geology of Gobustan provides thick limestone sedimentary rock, which includes numerous evolved shell fossils. These fossils witness the presence of transmitted forms over the wall area. characteristic terrace profiles of the three plains, Dash, and Chinga-Dash, is a clear evidence of the ancient coastal lines where the first settlers landed and where they established the first settlements. These terraces are the results of the Caspian Sea repeated regression and transgression.
The predecessor of the Bostan Rokas was a prominent Azerbaijani archaeologist XXVIII. Although the first information about the monument was obtained in 1939, thematic research began after 1947. Jafarzadeh recorded 3,500 categories and other cultural values here. After Jafarzadeh, his research continued by Jafar Golubistamov and Firuze Muradova. Under their supervision, new categories, as well as 4 Bronze Age sites, 20 shelters, 2 Stone Age burials, 50 kurgans, and 1 medieval sanctuary were recorded and studied. The study of Gobustan is still in progress. Today, this monument home for more than 7,000 categories. The theme of Gobustan cards are quite colorful. Aurochs, goats, deer, lions, camels, other zoomorphic images, women, hunters, boats, geometric signs are common motifs of Gobustan cards. In addition to those petroglyphs, there are Arabic, Persian, and Latin inscriptions. Dated the 1st century of AD, this unique inscription shows that during the reign of Roman Emperor Domitian, 12 Fulminata legions has passed through this place.
The rock art of Gobustan is universal. The geographic position is strategic in the mobility of hunter-gatherers because Azerbaijan is a natural region that connects Europe and Asia. Gobustan, at the gate of Europe and Asia, is a key element in understanding the mobility of human groups and cultural networks. In short, to understand the region, the origin and mechanism of interculturality and human globalization is a real possibility. An international team, Spanish, Italian, Azerbaijani research have undertaken a research project to answer open questions. When did prehistoric rock art appear in Western Asia? How is the stylistic, thematic, and technical development of Paleolithic rock art? What is the relationship between symbolic and everyday space? What cultural, social, and symbolic reason explains the enormous accumulation of rock art? The execution of the archaeological work will allow us to get closer to understanding the cognitive and symbolic complexity linked to the construction of the first graphic language and formal communication system.
I hope you could hear.
Yeah, it was a little bit, sometimes was a bit jumping. But anyway, the video will be uploaded on the YouTube in original, so can be seen the perfect audio and so on.
Yes.
Because the images that we saw was quite very beautiful and interesting. I think the project is quite important too.
Thank you. And No, I don't know if you could at least in the room there, and at home, hope people could listen and follow more or less the video.
Okay, I think that. Okay, sorry. Go on. I think that for today we finished because we don't have answering. So I think that we can conclude the session here, and all the materials, all the presentation and videos will be uploaded on the YouTube channel of the Centro Camuno. So if you missed something, you can take some information from that. Thank you. The people here in the room that we meet in more or less 20 minutes, half an hour, and we start from here to go to the rock art visit by night. And online, thank you to follow, and see you tomorrow.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Bye bye.
Bye to everybody.